Guys, we're back with the Screen Team. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for listening on KWOC. And, of course, thank you for checking us out on our social media sites like Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And I'm being joined by Sue with the Poplar Bluff Public Library. Sue, she loves Denzel Washington. She is a huge Denzel fan. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. I probably have seen more than my share of his films.
So, be with that. We're going to review a Denzel Washington movie. This one is called American Gangster. It also stars another fine actor, Russell Crowe, in there as well, Josh Brolin, and was directed by Ridley Scott. So, American Gangster, what is it about this film that you like so much?
I like the fact that it's approaching a perennial problem we have in the world, not just the United States, a drug problem.
Sure.
And looking at it from the fact that it's a business. And I think that sometimes we're not treating it, and this is my personal opinion, that we're not treating it that it's a business. And just like any other business, there are regulations and there are things that go with it. So I think that maybe we've looked at it as a crime. It should be looked at as a business, maybe.
Sure.
That's just an opinion.
Yeah, there's a lot of different areas we can examine more closely with this kind of stuff.
I think so.
But this is set based on a true story, right?
It is based on a true story. Frank Lucas happens to be a drug runner, and it was that set in the early 70s. And if you watch the film, you're going to see a lot of parallels, not only with the 1970s, but whenever you look at the 2000 teens, I think you're going to be able to see some of the same issues that we're dealing with drugs. But what got Frank Lucas started is he worked for Bumpy, and I can't remember Bumpy's last name right now. But anyway, he works for Bumpy, and Bumpy walks into a big box store at that time, or a big department store, and he says, "Look at this." He says, they've cut out the middleman, the small business, and everything now is direct to the supplier.
Right.
And that gets Frank going, because at that point, Bumpy has a heart attack, and Frank then goes to Southeast Asia during the time of Vietnam and goes direct to the supplier.
And gets
some of those people and gets the drugs and is able to undersell back to it's a business everybody else.
Yeah. And his business model is so smart. Seeing his competition, he saw how his competition was out and about. They were flamboyant. They were making more of a name and a spectacle of themselves than he felt like it needed to be, I guess. He wanted to keep a little undercover while still making that.
Exactly. In fact, he tells people not to have the chains and the fancy clothes and everything. And kind of as a little bit of a spoiler alert, that's what catches him, is he does a bit of that flamboyance. And that's what catches him up. But then we have to look in contrast to the good guy, so to speak, and that's Richie. And Richie's the New York cop who won't take anything under the table.
And he has the opportunity to do just that.
Exactly. And he turns it down. I want everybody who watches the film to see how Richie changes toward the end, though. And that's all I can say at this point.
Yeah.
But Frank Lucas is it's become somewhat likable, except whenever he is more than willing, whenever he pours the sugar out on the plate, watch out, somebody's going to die.
Poor Idris Elba. He didn't stand a chance.
And I don't know if any of y'all remember whenever I did the last review on Equalizer 2, I said there was a scene in Equalizer 2 that was very similar to the one in American Gangster. And yes, it's still there. And it has to do when they're preparing the drugs to go out for resale. And there is that same scene with the women who are working back in the kitchen, so to speak,
right?
And who are and the gangster guys are out there talking. And I just find it interesting that Denzel has that same motif in this, and two different directors, but still the same. And that makes me wonder about the influence that was there on that one.
My all-time favorite movie is The Godfather. I love The Godfather, and this is going to be a lame excuse, but it's still an excuse nonetheless. Even though it's got violence in there and people doing horrible things, one of the core themes is about family.
Exactly.
I love how we experienced meeting the family at the wedding and just seeing them together. And this movie has a lot of those family elements. Even though these people are doing bad things, they're killing people, they're running drugs, they're making tons of money off of drugs. It's that family element that still you're like, You're like, oh, well, they're not that bad.
Well, I think one of the things is Denzel does the same thing in The Godfather. It's the only people you can trust are family.
Right.
And so then he says that. Ruby Dee plays his mother.
She was so good in this.
Oh, she was.
Yeah.
You think she's perfectly innocent. Folks, she's going to fool you. She is absolutely going to fool you. And I'll just say she takes him to task.
Yeah.
Is what she does. But it's an interesting film. And then I recommend, once you've watched the film, don't do it beforehand. Go and do the Wikipedia thing. Look up Frank Lucas. Look up Richie. And you're going to see, and you'll learn a lot of interesting facts that go along with this film as well, because it's an eye-opener. And back to being deep, yes, it's a lot about family values as well. But it's also about American business as well.
Sure. There's a lot of different points in here. And I remember the first time I watched this film, I was just like, I was rooting for Denzel the entire time. But for some reason, I wasn't rooting for Russell Crowe. I was like, I don't want you to get him. That's Denzel. He's the man.
Well,
you kind of feel that way watching this movie.
Yeah, and I think that shows you the depth of Denzel's acting ability, because he can play the murderous gangster or the murderous bad guy, and then he can play the family man and preacher's wife.
Yeah.
It's just all the way through. And that's what I think we have to look at a lot of times in actors is we forget, we think, oh, I really like this actor.
Yeah.
But they're so one-sided. And then you look at an actor like Denzel and even Russell Crowe, and you Master and Commander is one of my favorite Russell Crowe films.
Yeah.
And it's the depth of those actors and what they can bring to the screen and bring to the audience and bring to me, and I'm sitting here going, oh wow, these guys are great. They're really good at what they do.
They are. They definitely are. The movie's called American Gangster, starring Russell Crowe, Denzel Washington, Josh Brolin, who plays a dirty bad guy.
Yeah, he does.
You're definitely not rooting for him at all. But directed by Ridley Scott, definitely one. If you're into those kind of mobster type movies, you should definitely check out. Sue, before we leave tonight, what should we check out at the library?
I hope that those of you who are coming in, we've got some new programs starting up, and we're doing everything from some health classes to Medicare. We're trying to meet a broad audience, and not even we're doing even yoga-free children as time comes on here. So I think that there's a lot here to be seen. I don't know if you remember, we did an Oreo tasting. Look for some more things. We have escape rooms coming up. We had a very successful escape room. And
Don't tell my wife that. She'll be there in a second. She loves that stuff.
Oh, listen. Closed out, our enrollment for those closed out in 36 hours.
Really?
Yeah.
Those things are so popular.
They really are.
Wow. All right, so be on the lookout. A lot of exciting stuff in 2019 at the Poplar Bluff Public Library. For Sue and Chris, we're part of the Screen Team, and we want you to know before you go.